Hey, welcome to this episode of the Contractor Commute. I am Drew. I'm here with Ben, and we're today going to talk about mistakes to avoid when operating a construction business. And so,
what better way to talk about mistakes?
Yeah, than a blooper reel of the dumbest things we've ever done. So everyone makes them. There's a lot of
try to
wisdom
forget them.
Yeah, we do try to forget them. We were prepping for this. We're like, oh God, I don't want to talk about that. And also leaving the names out was also challenging. Part of the goal, I learned a lot from, if you can learn from someone else's mistakes,
oh man,
it's always the wiser way to learn than doing it the hard way. And so, some of us are more prone to learn the hard way than others, but we just want to talk about some mistakes that, we've made along the way. So, let's start with, subject one, estimating mistakes, mistakes made while estimating. What are, common pitfalls or mistakes that maybe you've made while estimating a job?
Early 2000s, I was working on an estimate for a project for my dad's business. It was kind of a point of pride, show the old man how it's supposed to be done. Nice project, great potential clients. And I remember our dad looking at what it's done. He's like, "Are you sure these numbers are right?" I was like, "Yeah, double checked them, triple checked them." We lost the job because it was too cheap. So mistake there was this client wanted to make the reassurance that there was margin to cover errors. They wanted things right, and it costs money to get things right. And this leads into a very common mistake that really I didn't learn then. Was really the costing aspect of it. Sometimes it's easy to figure what we assume cost would be from a standpoint. Hey, this is how many 2x4s we need. This is how many sheets of plywood we're going to need. I mean, we all identify with that, right? We go out there, you figure out how many what the initial material list will be. How many more trips to the store do you make between the time you start and the time you're done? I mean, how many more times do you have your vendor come out and bring? I mean, some guys get it right after years and years of experience, but if you're new to the process, don't assume that your list is right.
Yeah.
It might be twice as much stuff that ends up being out there before you're done.
Yeah. And that's the thing that we've talked to. Even a lot of our customers have said, like, they told us, hey, I lost job because I underbid. And the customer's like, that's too low.
Right. They forgot something, clearly.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's not what people think about often. But yeah.
Well, then the reverse of that is just throw a big number at it. You also look like a fool in that scenario because you haven't justified the cost either. Right. So what's worked best is obviously get the detail and then leave some of the room. I guess another estimating mistake would be not defining the process for change orders. Like at this point, this is the scope of work. Change orders, costs go up on different material items. You're going to pay for it. Yeah. And we're not Santa Claus.
Right. Yeah. And, it's one more thing, right? Like as the customer's in the middle of a project, it's very common that something else comes up in the middle of it. Hey, while you're at it, that's the while you're at it list. Could you do this? Could you do that?
Oh man, that'll burn you every time. Yeah. While you're at it. Yeah. Oh man, I've been burnt by that one so many times. It does kind of tie in though with knowing where you're at as a business, which is very difficult to keep track of when you're a small company. You're out there you're not out there crunching not in the back office crunching numbers.
Yeah.
Not like it would have helped because there's so many different things to keep track of that it's a full-time job and you don't have a full-time person to keep up with that in that context. So yeah, very easy to miss stuff.
It was a growing overhead, right? Where it's like, hey, what it cost you last year might not be as you're scaling and growing.
I got bit by that one.
Where what you thought, your margins are just not as good as you think they were because your business has grown.
Yeah, I grew from just me to 14 people in a couple of years, and the cost of doing business had some big shifts.
Yeah.
I had an office, had a shop, I had office manager, a project manager.
Payroll. Yeah.
Those people didn't get anything done besides helping manage projects.
Yeah. And we've done a whole episode on just managing overhead, which is something to break down. But again, a lot of guys in the business don't think about it, especially when you scale. That is not something you have to think about as much when it's just you and a buddy, whatever. But when you scale and start growing your business, you've got to know how that works.
And it starts off with when you are the one-man truck, that your tools are a part of your hourly billing. So if you want to take home a certain amount of money, you got to figure out what those tools cost you, what that truck cost you, the trailer cost you, all of the stuff that you have.
Yeah.
It might be $100,000 worth of stuff. how much time does it take before all that stuff depreciates? And you divide that up by the number of hours you're going to use it for.
Yeah.
And that's really the cost of having it.
And we've heard the story too. I mean,
I'm $20 an hour, but my tools are $50.
Yeah. So the stories of a guy's truck gets broken into, tools got stolen. I mean, how many times I've heard that so many times where it's like, now what am I going to do? I can't go make money to replace my tools. Right. And just the overhead too, of like
the lesson there, get an insurance policy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which also goes into your overhead, just the cost of doing, the cost of doing business. Right. But a guy getting started and maybe not thinking about it, that can eat you. All right. Let's go. So we talk about estimating mistakes. Let's hit project management mistakes.
Yeah. Glad we're done with the estimating mistakes. So many to make there. Yeah. And that's really one of the things behind ConGenius is the estimating aspect of it. I mean, the pain point there is massive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to master. It's hard to get right.
It is. And I think we talk about it, but the facts are 4 to 5 small contracting businesses go out of business in the first 5 years.
It's a huge number, isn't it?
So 80% fail, and it's not because they don't. It's not because they don't know how to do good work. It's in the estimating.
Sometimes, but
sometimes,
they're hard to fly by nights. But most of the time, you got a legitimate business. You know what you're doing. It's the other aspects of it, the business aspect.
Yeah, a tax bill comes in the year, you're like,
$10,000. What?
Right? I don't have it. Right.
Yeah. Project management, did you say?
Yeah, project management. Let's go there.
Project management mistakes. Boy, that's a broad area, isn't it? Covers so much ground. One of the big things for me was as my business grew, my time was diluted so many different directions. I became lead salesperson. I became lead carpenter.
Customer service.
Whatever it was.
Yeah,
I was out there punch list, hiring people, interviewing people, and I ended up becoming, just for hiring my office manager, I had 86 people apply for it. I interviewed 12 people.
That's a lot of
That's
time.
Me.
Yeah.
Just, I had to sort through 86 resumes, pick out the top 5, interview them, then try to make a decision. And every role was like that.
Yeah.
And you're hiring. So when it comes down to the project management aspect of it, when you're not available and you're not there, if you're the expert on your team and you're the one that's the project manager and the HR man and everything else, you're just the natural dilution of your time and you end up not being there when you need to be there.
Yep.
So I was running the job and I ended up tasking somebody else to run it. And obviously they didn't have the experience. I wasn't able to be there. And so it was a negative thing both directions because he's looking at me saying, why aren't you here? And I'm looking at him saying, why aren't you getting it done right?
Yeah.
And I've had that happen more than once on different projects where there's an expectation I have of somebody to take my role without them having the qualifications or a definition of what that role needed to be.
Yeah.
So it's a huge mistake.
Let's talk about, where that goes right into the kind of the next thing we're going to jump into, which is hiring mistakes, which this is the easy one of making mistakes while hiring. You talk about, hey, I got to hire an office manager, right? But then that takes you get 80 something people apply. You look at, interview 12 people trying to pick the right one based off of one conversation and resume review. That's a minefield. And, I always say, and that's the easy part. Then you end up firing them, which is never fun either. But, getting the right person up front is critical. But let's
particularly in construction. I know we've touched on this before, but there's this kind of mentality, like how hard could it be? I've worked on a lot of different projects and a lot of different customers, and I've had probably a good 20 or 30 times where people have said, we'll handle the painting on a project over the years. Just like, we want to save money, we'll take care of the painting because we can do that. They're not painters, but it seems more manageable, something they could do.
Yeah. How hard could it be?
Why I bring that up is because you have similar things that happen in the job market. Somebody is a pretender to have skills in an area because they think, how hard could it be? The fact that they think that shows you their ignorance.
Right.
Because to be a professional painter involves at least 3 years of professional painting experience of being able to get out there and do it. Some people might be a quick study and get to a proficiency quicker than that. But to really know all the intricacies and ins and outs of products and all of the scenarios, you learned a lot from mistakes and from other people. And being able to do a great job involves a lot of hours. And there's no shortcut.
Yeah.
And so when you're hiring, you get these applicants and what do? Well, pretty much everything. And then I've asked, well, what's the best, what is your most proficient, skill?
Yeah.
Or skill you're most proficient with? Well, all of them. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
As soon as they don't have a specialty, they're not good at anything. That means they're not good at anything.
Yeah.
Because there's not one thing they can point to as saying, I'm a trim carpenter.
Yeah.
I've had 20 years of experience in trim carpentry. If you want a precise joint, you want things put together, I'm fast with it. This is what I do. Hire that guy as opposed to the guy said, you want your plumbing done, electrical work, drywall, I can handle it. And next thing you know, you're following this guy around really just disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the mistake for me was hiring people for too broad of a role.
Yeah. And if you're overly optimistic too, like you want to believe people, but you get burned enough times, you learn not to just believe people.
It's not just belief. You almost feel like there's a need. Like, I need this person. He's a person. So therefore, let's go.
Right.
As opposed to realizing nobody is way better than the wrong person.
Absolutely.
Because at least you need somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're not following this fool around fixing some mistakes.
Right. That will cost you more time and effort.
I think one of the best stories of a bad hire for me was, this is going to be so painful. Yeah. And I'll have to make sure I don't say his name. We'll cut it out if it blurps out.
Yeah.
But I'm working on this job, and somebody referred him saying, hey, he's looking for a job. His friend or something like that. So I said, okay, well, check him out, come out to the project we're working on. I tasked him with like setting up some shelves or something like that. And he was terrible. I mean, just the project was, 1 inch off, in the corner. He didn't know anything about what he was doing. I thought, okay, well, that's one thing he doesn't do well. So let's not have him do shelving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clearly that's not his thing. But instead of really recognizing and really focusing in on saying, what is he good at, if anything? And just saying, you know what, I can't train you in a proficiency. That's not my role. There's plenty of other trade schools or other pathways where you can be an apprentice, but this guy has got a family to feed.
Yeah.
He's not going to be an apprentice. Like, that's just not going to work for either one of us. And so it came down to another project, and I thought, well, we'll just put him on laborer type work. That came down to, I'm giving too many details, but anyway.
This guy knows who he is by now.
Do not listen to the podcast.
I'm going to go on a hunch and say he's not.
He's not. Yeah. Anyway, he's not in the trades. But anyway, we had another project and tasking him with a bunch of labor type work. Customer calls me and said, your guy fell through the attic into the hallway. And I said, what? So I get there and I said, what did we learn from this? Was the setup in place? Do we have proper planking in this attic space? There's the fall through potential. This is dangerous. So we don't want anybody getting hurt. He's working with somebody else who had been on my team for a couple of years. So clearly this was, it wasn't just him out there on his own.
Yeah.
And he said, man, I don't think there's anything that could have been done. I mean, this is just one of those things. Red flag.
Yeah.
But trying to be a nice guy, give this guy another chance. So he ends up staying on that project until it's done in this attic work.
Yeah, which you had to replace.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Finally.
To help my visualization of this scene, he physically fell entirely through the attic, like landed in the hallway, or was it like just a leg punch?
Leg punch. Yeah,
all right.
Right.
All right.
So, and he
that's still awesome. I mean, not awesome, but like the way I just like envisioning these things.
And he's no injuries. Thank God. Everything's okay. And I'm getting my drywall guy out there, patch the hole and everything else.
Yeah. Which would have been awesome if you had done that before the customer saw it.
So
before she saw his leg dangling through the attic.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I've got another guy comes out to the project who's also very green, no experience and everything. Customer comes back. We have everything all patched, put back together, except it hadn't been painted yet. So the patch is still fresh. The texture matches. It looks really good. But I'm thinking, let's get this thing repaired. Then we explain, hey, listen, we had a little bit of thing and she won't even know what happened. So Curly, customer comes back and he's staring at the ceiling right where it happened.
Oh, so she didn't know yet.
Yeah, she didn't know yet.
Oh my gosh.
And she's staring and she's like, what's up there?
Nothing to see here.
Right. Not that we're trying to be deceptive, but I'd like to finish the repair before we point it out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, that's, oh, wow. What, and she was not going to let this one go. She was going to milk this one for all it was worth.
Yeah. Understandably. So we get through this. I end up letting him go a few weeks later and said, you know what? This is just not a great fit. Trying to be nice about it, not run anybody. One thing I've learned from HR side of just hiring people, there's no sense running anybody else down on the way out. Yeah.
Just like, not a good fit. Wish you the best. So I'm telling my wife, just so grateful to be alive and things are working okay and nobody got hurt from this thing. About 6 weeks later, And I'm just starting to get to the point now where there's not recurring mistakes every week of being like, oh, this guy messed up here, he messed up there,
Right.
this isn't right.
Yeah.
It's just starting to
Yeah.
get to the point where we can move forward.
The trail of mistakes is
Right. The trail of mistakes kind
vanishing.
of cleaning up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just a random comment to her. It was either that night or the next day, I get a call from the same customer. And she says something fell through the ceiling from the attic into her kitchen this time, not the hallway.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what the heck?
Yeah.
What could have fallen through the ceiling?
Wasn't his leg again.
Right. He's not up. Yeah. So we're all done with this job. She was like some sort of like fan. So I text the other guy that's on the project. I said, did so-and-so have, some sort of fan in the attic? And he said, oh yeah, he had bungee corded this like 100-pound fan to the attic roof. And it collapsed in the middle of the night.
No.
So not to run this guy down, just in case he ever.
He for sure knows who he is by now.
Okay. The mistake was very costly to me, not to him.
Yeah.
He still got paid to screw it up, got paid, and everything else. But the lesson to me was, in the first moments of that, it would have been fairer to me and to him to make the call out of saying, this is not, we're driving a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
And call it good there.
Yep.
Instead of trying to make something work.
Yeah.
And that's a big mistake. And I've repeated that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being a nice guy doesn't mean, and with the opposite of it being a total jerk.
Yeah.
But being a nice guy, you have to call these things out and be like, you know what, am I able to bring this guy up to where he needs to be at an expense I'm comfortable with?
Right. Yeah. That's a great way of phrasing it. Cause I think it is costing you. It is taking your time. It is taking your money, and it's not good for them either.
No.
And the sooner you can realize
they don't
it, the
appreciate
better.
it.
But it's like the debt you feel committed, the technical debt concept, where it's like, well, I hired them, I did this, and
2 weeks in, maybe another week they'll be better.
Yeah, I don't want to go through the entire hiring process again, and all those things. But it's a pride thing to say, hey, you missed it. On the hiring process, you made the decision to hire them, and you got to.
It does reflect back on me.
Yeah,
I made a mistake. I hired somebody I should have never hired.
Yeah, most people are not quick to admit their mistakes, but in this scenario, to your point,
I hate to tell you, well, she blew it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. What else you got? What about some financial mistakes? Got any examples of just financial mistakes you've made in your business that you learned the hard way?
Yeah. Probably one of the bigger mistakes would be when to spend money on reinvestment. It's really easy to see you got 40 grand in the bank account and you want to go blow it on something, buy some more tools or whatever else, and want to scale your business. I like to compare this to Monopoly. You've been around the board twice. You own all the properties. You're starting to build, houses on everything, but you don't have any cash in the bank.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're the guy selling houses around the board because you don't have the liquidity to support this empire you're building.
Right.
So building too fast without having the liquidity or assets or cash in the bank essentially to support that.
Yeah.
It's really not about the assets, it's about the cash.
Yeah.
So cash flowing appropriately and keeping some margin there. That's a lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Making sure you have minimums in the bank where you're saying this is a sort of 10 grand or 20 grand or 50 grand, depending on the size of your business, becomes the zero.
Right.
As opposed to true bottom dollar zero.
Yeah.
Like I do not have $1.
Yeah.
And if you can avoid that scenario.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
But in my first business, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, for most people's first business, it's not the case.
No, yeah,
you're gonna. I mean,
down to 12 cents.
Yeah, you're trying to get a.
I remember looking at my bank account when I was like 68 cents in one account, 12 cents in the other account.
Yeah,
and I had 15 grand coming in the next day. But that's where that was today. That's not a very good spot to be.
You'll lose sleep over that.
Yeah,
But I think you look at most entrepreneurs and business owners fail the first 2 or 3 goes at it. And it's
when do you reinvest?
Yeah,
don't overcommit. Don't buy fancy stuff. Make sure you keep the cash reserve.
Yeah, it's better off to play conservative because some people be too conservative where it's like they are not investing enough.
Yep,
and they're building up.
That was never me, but yeah.
Yeah, but you also have to scale, right? Like you got to think through. Like we had a customer. We were talking the other day, and they were like, "Hey, I'm my ceiling is I have more work than I can do, but my body's slowing down." They're like, when I was 25, 30, 35, I could keep up. He's like, I'm hitting 50, 55, and I'm physically starting to get a limitation. And I didn't invest to scale 10 years ago to where, and so now instead of working on my business, I'm continuing to work in my business. And the product is me, right? It's not sellable, any of those things, right? And so at a certain point, you do need to have a long-term strategy where you're building up cash to deploy to make it scalable. So eventually you're the GC, but you're doing less and less of the hands-on work yourself,
Yeah, that's
so,
a good point.
The person who spends all their cash but doesn't think about long-term is another thing too. And so,
so probably to that point, the lesson to be learned from that scenario is, okay, how does this actually impact my bottom dollar?
Yeah.
Buying some new sander or a new tool, does that actually help my business?
Yeah.
In the niche that I'm in.
Right. Is it
shiny object syndrome where
right.
it's some new tool that we just had to have?
Absolutely.
That's $600.
And if it's actually going to improve your efficiency and help you make money, then good investment. Right. But it's just sometimes we blow money to feel good.
But let's say we check those boxes. Yes. Does it improve efficiency? Check. Will make me money? Check. I've got $1,000 in the account. This cost me $600. Maybe I should wait till the end of next week when I get paid on that one job.
Maybe. You most certainly should,
right.
Or have a separate account that, a percentage of what you build goes into reinvestment. And that's where, we've talked about money management and stuff. We'll probably talk about it again, but is there a percentage of every job that you're just taking and straight putting into an account for reinvestment? And that's where that money comes from,
I think another mistake would be looking to all financing to make up for that. I think you got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
How are you paying that back? And what does that look like on your business? Did you model it? And as contractors, we're not always the guys that are modeling scenarios.
Right.
We're just like, yeah, it'll be fine.
No, you find yourself robbing Peter to pay Paul, month to month, and you're trying to drum up enough cash in June to pay for your July
and all the rest. And
and that's when you got, at that point you end up having creditors chasing you down. Not a comfortable place to be in. You know,
another financial mistake would be not billing promptly. I don't like collecting money, and some people don't like paying. Yeah, it's just like check again. Just last week we paid you. Yeah, well, it's that time now. Right, and that comes back to some of the conversations we've had on communication. Yeah, like, do you define the payment schedule ahead of time? Hey, we get paid once a week, or every other week. Yeah, and it's like clockwork. You don't miss one. Yeah. You sound like you are a beggar every time. Yeah. I got to get paid. This is the schedule. This is what we agreed on, even if it's, and anyway.
Well, we talk to the customers, they have a stack of invoices. Like, I'm running low on cash, and you go send out some invoices. Yeah. Like, not having a system there is going to get you in trouble.
Yeah, well, that's the other part about it. Trying to keep up with it all.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Ben, I appreciate taking the time today. Just simple mistakes to avoid when operating a construction business. Talked about some estimating mistakes.
We can go on for days.
Project management mistakes. Yeah, like this could be a few hours, and no one's got the time.
The thing that I enjoy about mistakes, though, is instead of really focusing on the down aspect of the mistake, is just seeing, what am I learning from this? Totally. If you can learn something from the mistake, it's not as painful. Right. And hey, we all going to make mistakes. We're going to keep making mistakes. We learn from them. And sometimes they come out of nowhere. Yeah. Like, wow, who ever saw that one coming? Yeah. And sometimes they're unavoidable. Yeah. Some part of the education, and it's part of learning, part of growing, and mistakes are, cost of tuition.
Yeah, they're great educators. Yeah. So, all right, we appreciate you guys taking the time today for Contractor Commute. Again, if you're finding value in the podcast, love to get reviews on wherever you're listening to this to. You got feedback, email us podcast@congenius.com. Something you want us to dive into or give more information on. Would love to do that. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys in a couple weeks.